Welcome to the 2024 Doug Wright Awards. Please welcome Chair of the Doug Wright Awards and Canada's foremost collector of Ben Wick's original art, Brad Mackay.
Can everybody hear me? It's not my fault. Can everybody hear me now? I'm talking as close as possible to the microphone. Okay, so it's good. Seth, can you hear me? He's older, so... Can you hear me? Tanya, did you bring his ear horn? No. My name is Brad Mackay, and welcome to the 20th Annual Doug Wright Awards ceremony for the Beautiful Arts and Letters Club. Just so you're clear, because I've had a lot of questions, I'm the chair of the board of the Doug Wright Awards. Coleman is the executive director. I know that's hard, it can get confused. The difference is, if you have a compliment about the awards, you come to me. And if you have a complaint on someone who's nominated, you go to Coleman. He's right there.
I have a complaint right now.
20 years, I was reflecting on 20 years. I have a daughter who's 20 years old. Long time. It's longer than a lot of marriages. It's longer than a lot of careers that people have. And it's even longer than the gap between the publication of Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the Wright. And it's so long, as a matter of fact, one of tonight's nominees, James Collier, is the son of a past winner, Dave Collier. So congratulations to both of them. I kind of feel like the Doug Wright Awards had a kid. So I'm really happy that happened. And I should say, speaking of family, I feel like I was thinking about this today. There seems to be different people, and I kind of feel like the awards are kind of like an annual family meeting for me, but it's a comics family. So it's great to see everybody out here, and that's really fitting because I'd like to point out that almost all members of Doug Wright's family here, there's 12 members of Doug Wright's family here. Ken Wright and Jim Wright, and their partners, kids. So give it up to them. They were actually in town. They were doing like a charity soccer tournament. Right? That's why you guys were in town. So they just walked by. Speaking of family, I'm really, really pleased that my wife Erin and my son Charlie are here tonight. So give it up for them. They traveled all the way from Ottawa, although I'm a little suspicious. I think my wife just gave me going to this event every year when I left for 2 or 3 days. It wasn't like a lost weekend, but so you know now. I want to thank everyone who makes these awards possible, including cartoonists, publishers, distributors, bookstores, comic shops, and of course, buy these books and the readers. So give it up to them. And I think the 21 nominated books this year represent a very diverse and eclectic survey of the state of comics. At the moment, I was looking at them when I heard the nominees. They've got horror comics, they've got Haida manga, they've kids comics, they've got personal memoir. But I did know that as eclectic as it is, I kind of feel like this is a format we've been neglecting. So I convinced, based on Jordan's speech last year, if anybody was here, we have a whole category dedicated to scroll comics this year. So, Seth, you can get on that scroll comic you've been working on. Now is the point in the evening when I stop making jokes and answer all your pretty questions, starting with, for people who haven't been here before, what are the Doug Wright Awards? The Doug Wright Awards are a non-profit foundation committed to supporting and celebrating the best in Canadian comics. The main way we do this is through this annual awards ceremony, which we've been doing for 20 years. And the goal from day one, when Seth and I founded this, was to cast a spotlight on Canadian comics and the people who make them. Back then, there were not a lot, and now, as we've commented many times, there's a plethora. We've handed out over 60 award trophies for an all-star lineup of the country's best cartoonists, which over the years have included Michelle Rebegliati, Julian Tamaki, Joe Ullman, Mariko Tamaki, Kate Beaton, Sami Alwani, Mark Bell, David Collier, Hartley Lynn, Michael DeForge, Jesse Jacobs, and Fiona Smith, to name a few. And each year we hand out trophies in 4 categories. The trophies which are front of stage here. There's Best Book, the Nipper, Pigskin Peters Award, and the Egghead. And to be considered, a book must have been published in the previous calendar year. This year we received 200 entries from dozens of publishers and self-published cartoonists. Each category is judged by a diverse 3-member jury made up of cartoonists, industry experts, and those with deep knowledge and appreciation of the medium. Books are judged on quality of illustration, writing, and production. And in addition to our awards categories, we also take time every year to pause and honor Canadian comics history by inducting a cartoonist or somebody who is integral in the comics industry into our Hall of Fame, which is called the Giants of the North. And we are very pleased this year to have 2 inductees who are both here in person. The first is Denny LeBear, a foundational comics publisher and founder of Renegade Press at Art of Anaheim, which printed such seminal 1980s titles as, there's a long list, but I picked a few. Is that okay? Cerebus, Wordsmith, Ms. Tree, Silent Invasion, and my personal favorite, Flaming Carrot. So thank you for publishing Flaming Carrot. Everybody out for Flaming Carrot? And we have not one but 2 giants here tonight, because we're also thrilled to induct Chris Delicate into the Giants of the Earth. He is a Toronto illustrator and cartoonist. He's a Toronto illustrator and cartoonist and over his 35-year career, Maurice has created award-winning comics, books, zines, and has illustrations published in international magazines and for advertising clients, not to mention taking part in art shows around the world. So congrats to both of you. I'm so glad you're here. The Wright Awards, of course, take the name from cartoonist Doug Wright, Doug Wright's family script dominated newspapers in the mid-20th century. And I'm really happy to say that our ceremony tonight is extra special because not only is it the 20th anniversary, but it's the WWE's launch for elected Doug Wright, Canada's master cartoonist 1963 to 1980, which is the second and final volume of the elected Doug Wright book, which was published 15 years ago, actually, at the State Awards. And the inaugural book under our own Giants North Press. And it looks like this. This is actually my mom Norma's copy that I picked up. I hope she's watching at home. So, so copies are available at the table at the back. So let's snap it up. And I just want to thank as well everybody who supported the crowdfunding campaign, because if you didn't know, we did this using a crowdfunder, which is a Canadian online fundraising campaign, and it was a huge hit. I also want to thank Conan for organizing it and doing all the messy work. Speaking of the Doug Wright Awards and Conan, there's also, for the first time, a Doug Wright Awards swag at the back. So there's t-shirts, there's buttons, bags, tote bags, stickers. Is that it?
There's free coasters in the bar.
Free coasters at the bar. Don't worry about the free coasters. Buy the other stuff. Because as I mentioned off the top, the Wright Awards are a non-profit. Unlike other non-profits in Canada, awards organizations can't get government funding. That's sweet federal provincial funding. So we don't get any grants. So as a result, we couldn't pull the show off every year without dedicated volunteers and sponsors, in addition to the swag that buy and support us. So for our volunteers, I would like to thank this list of fine volunteers. We have Rafa, Alex Hoffman, Jay Stevens, Matthew Daly, who did our very spiffy poster, if you saw it around, Michael Thorner, who's doing our music. I just want you to follow me around the rest of the weekend, playing the on and off. Eric Fayette, Derek Wincheers, Jeff Speed, Bob Siperiak, legendary Bob Siperiak, our Siperiak of Drawn and Quarterly fame, of Raw Magazine fame, a living legend who we've somehow managed to, we must have blackmail on him or something. He comes every year and live draws our awards, which is amazing. Thanks, Bob. Chief Ladybird, Andy Brown, and John Montgomery, who did an amazing job of redesigning our logo and our look and feel, which Seth had previously done. So that's a big task, and I think he's done a fantastic job. So thanks to all those people. Thank you. And then I want to thank our sponsors. So Crowdfunder, which is the crowdfunding website I mentioned, they were our venue sponsor there at St. Margaret's Club. Toronto Life Magazine, Broken Pencil Magazine, Strange Adventures, Toyama Provides, Valley View Artist Retreat, this amazing club there at St. Letters Club. I got to go up when I had to change into this. The stairs were packed, so I went in the elevator, went up to the second floor, and changed it, came back down. That's a great entrance. Thank you. I felt like I was going to a back cave or something. Super 7, The Beguiling, and TCAT. Thank you for all of those people. All right, I can stop talking. Before I wrap up, Conan wants me to remind you that we'll also be doing a draw at the end of the evening this ceremony. You all got tickets for a set of both volumes of Wright, so Doug Wright Volume 1 and this one. So stick around for that. Now at last, that's what everybody came for. An American is going to get up on this stage and rhapsodize about how great Canada is. He's been drinking all day, getting ready for it. Now I'm pleased to introduce you to our host for the 20th annual. He's been drinking Canadian beer too. So your host for the 20th annual Doug Wright Awards, a man who is gifted with charm and grace and wit. You know him, you love him, the Bob Hope of the Doug Wright Awards, Mr. Dustin Harbin. Let's go.
I'm going to try not to beat the podium. Brad did. But I might do it once. I'll probably cry at some point. I usually do. I'm going to try and imagine you guys imagining me naked to help keep me from doing that. But I just want to warn you that it may happen. Many of you have met me before or seen me do this. Who am I? The rest of you are wondering. Nobody. Not important, not famous, not even good at this. Just like a guy that would do it. It's pretty much my whole CV there. When I was writing these notes 20 minutes ago, I was like, I think this is maybe my fourth time or fifth time. And then Brad told me that it was my sixth time, which is disgraceful. It is a blight on Canadian cartooning that you repeatedly have picked the worst American possible to expound on the value of Canadian comics. Not that I don't like them. A lot of them are pretty good. And also, another reason it's so dumb to hire me is that they pay me. This is paid. I'm making dozens of dollars right now to just do this, to sit here imagining me naked. So anyway, yeah, I've used up most of that territory of self-important self-effacement, which is my trademark. But here I am. So we just have to get through it and hope that they make better choices in the future. Don McKellar, past host. Scott Thompson, Kids in the Hall. Steve Manali. And then Dustin Harbin. 6 times. One thing I'm very good at, better than I am a cartoonist, is complaining. I'm good at it. I like it. I excel at it. I like to kvetch. I like to ignore things that are wrong with me and focus instead on things that are wrong with you, which feels better. It's just nice. Here's one complaint that I think about a lot, is when people say, well, I'm a storyteller. Well, are you a writer, an author, an illustrator? Oh, no, I consider myself a storyteller. Like capital S storyteller. To which I say, give me a break. It's the most appallingly self-important thing that you can use to say, and we all have done it. There's a lot of storytellers in this room tonight. It's a built-in self-aggrandizement. As the narrator, you place yourself at the center of the story. This happened to me. I witnessed this. Let me bring it to you. I was at the top of Mount Sinai. I saw God. I brought some tablets down. I'm Moses. I'm the center of the story. It's easy to do that long enough that you convince yourself that you're performing some sort of grand service to humanity. Let me change the subject. When I was a kid, I got this book. I meant to bring it tonight, and I forgot. If they paid me more than dozens of dollars, I might have remembered it. But it's a book that this book seriously made an enormous impact on me in the way that kind of your first beloved book does. That you carry through the rest of your life. You kind of measure all other books against it. And the book was about Paul Bunyan, and it was drawn by a guy called William Dempster. Let's say Bill Dempster, if his family called him that. And it was like a crude Ben Shahn kind of mid-century abstract thing. I didn't know about abstraction. I just thought, this guy really cannot draw. These are terrible drawings. The feet aren't the same size. Insane. But when I saw it, it was like a glow awoke in me. And later, when I became an adult, I still love this book, and the internet happened in that time, and suddenly you could just ask Jeeves when you had a question about something. And I said, Jeeves, tell me about William Dempster. No, nothing. There was no mention of him. There was no Wikipedia, which didn't exist yet. There was no Landiot article. There was no history. At the time, I was running a comic shop, too, and I knew way too much about all sorts of other lesser cartoonists. And it bothered me. And so finally, I ended up finding him through I think he had some watercolors in a gallery somewhere in the Bay Area, California. And I contacted the gallery owner, and we connected, and she said, Bill would love to meet you. You know, he has no fans. No one has ever, said, I'd love to meet you. And he's like 90 years old in a restaurant. And so I said, I'd love to come out there. And then I immediately, 15 years later, made the trip. 2 weeks before, maybe a week before, almost on the way, Bill dies. I get emailed, and I thought to myself, if only I had told Bill Dempster how much he meant to me. If only he'd known that this little boy had grown up to be a little man and doing the same thing that he did and looking up to him and trying to understand his drawings, take them apart, copy them, but then to hide the fact that he had copied them somehow. If only he knew that he was part of my story. I was the storyteller. I was the center, etc. It was like telling Bill Dempster that he had joined my own personal Giants of the North, as if he would care, When I first attended the Doug Wright Awards, I didn't really know much about them, except that I could not have one, which made them 120% less interesting right away. But I do like Canadians, and I was with a bunch of Canadians that I liked, and they were going, and so I was going. And I remember watching Seth induct people into the Giants of the North, or interview David Boswell, or just enlarged, and it was, especially in recent years, always someone I had never heard of. Not David Boswell, but often it was a person that truly, for me, admittedly ignorant person, enlarged my conception and idea of not only comics, but specifically culturally Canadian comics. And that's great. When I tell people about this award and what it means, I am seriously, I laud the award quite a lot. I'm a big fan. But the other thing that I really, really enjoyed was watching Seth and Brad hold on, let me try to avoid it. It was watching them tell the story of how much they love Doug Wright to Phyllis. I'm just too sweet. I just have too sweet a heart. I apologize for my sweetness, my unmanly sweetness. But Seth would come and escort Phyllis onto the stage and present Phyllis with flowers. And Brad and Seth would extol not only Doug, but Phyllis, and they would treat her like a queen. Listen, no one has ever said a nice thing about Seth. I did not fly all the way here to Ontario to break that tradition. But it was really nice. Last year, Phyllis could not attend the Wrights. She was ill. And I asked Brad, where's Phyllis at? Oh, she's not well. She couldn't make it this year, but hopefully she'll get better. And after the awards, I was like, hey, do you think I could get Phyllis's address? I'll mail her a letter. A little hey, I missed you. I was thinking about you. Maybe Hmm. How nice it has been, to be part of this story. Uh, because, of course, she would like to know that she was a side character in my story, right? That's what she was worrying about, is whether Dustin Harbin was thinking about her. But that's the way the storyteller operates, right? I'm not done. Just because I wiped my face, give me a second. Um, and then she passed away. And I thought, oh, I missed the chance to tell Phyllis this thing. Like an idiot. Um, but I do regret not being able to tell her how much I enjoyed seeing these people I respect pay homage to her husband, and to her, and to venerate them in a way that is making me fall to pieces. I don't even know Phyllis that well. I rarely interact with her other than to apologize for all the swearing. And she was always very gracious, and she, pretended that it didn't bother her, which I thought was very nice. But I really enjoyed seeing Seth and Brad and Conan show their devotion not only to comics and Canadian comics, but to the Wright family. And I wish that I had told Phyllis how nice it was to be a little part of her story, her husband's story, and through these guys, our story. And now I'm finished. You would not believe how hard it is to fake cry. That much. That is an actor's craft right there. Now, a few notes about how the awards are going to work. There's no more crying. If your name is announced as a winner, please come up to the stage to give your speech, and then Seth will present you with the award on the floor in front of the stage as you return to your seat. And you'll have a photo made with Seth in which you should smile. It says right here, please smile for the photographer, and I've underlined please as you're handing the award. Our first award tonight is the Egghead, or as we say in the South, the Egghead, which is the Doug Wright Award for Best Kids Book, which recognizes the year's best book aimed at children 0 to 12. The award takes its name from Doug Wright's original unused name for his signature character, Niffler. The winner of the Egghead receives a trophy and a small cash prize. To present this year's Egghead, please welcome Joanne Purcell, the founding and current program coordinator of illustration at Seneca Polytechnic and one of this year's Egghead judges.
Hello. So, the nominees for the 2024 Egghead Award are Thunderboom by Jack Briglio and Claudia Davila, published by Kids Can Press. Pluto Rocket, New in Town by Paul Gilligan, published by Tundra Books. Hockey Girl Loves Drama Boy by Faith Erin Hicks, published by First Second. Otis and Peanut by Nassim Harab and Kelly Collier, published by Owl Kids Books. And Bad Medicine by Christopher Twin, published by Emanata, an imprint of Conundrum. And the winner is Otis and Peanut by Nasreen Harab and Kelly Collier, published by Owl Kids Books. Thank you.
Speech first, then trophy.
Yeah, and just thank you so much to Owl Kids, to Jen Stokes, our editor, to Elisa Baldwin, our designer, and everyone else who made this happen, and especially to these amazing characters that we all fell in love with.
Our second award this evening is the Pigskin Peters Award, which is the Doug Wright Award for Best Small or Micropress Book, sponsored by Broken Pencil Magazine. This award, given to a book not published by a major press, is named for a popular character in the comic strip Birdseye Center, drawn by Doug Wright from 1948 to 1968. The winner of the Pigskin Peters receives a black bowler hat, similar to the one worn by the character's namesake, and a small cash prize. Here, to present the 2024 Pigskin Peters Award is Ivana Filipovic, last year's winner of the Pigskin Peters for the book Where Have You Been?
Hello, I am Ivana Filipovic, and I will not sing and dance. And it's your loss. Here are the nominees for the 2024 Pigskin Peters Awards. The first one, we have the sponsor first, Broken Pencil. Thank you. The first nominated book is End Sickness, number 2, by Sofia Alarcon, self-published. The second one is The Lonesome Shepherd by James Collier. Published by Big Shot. Number 3 is Old Caves by Tyler Landry. Published by Uncivilized. Next one is Power 9, Part 1 by John Little and David Little. Self-published. And we have Index by Swan, Rachel Evangeline Shion, and Joyce Kim. Self-published. And the award goes to Old Caves by Tyler Landry. Published by Uncivilized. Bravo.
Oh, the lights. I have nothing prepared. I didn't think I was going to get this. But I'm very pleased. I never thought I'd be standing at the front of this room, I guess. I'd just like to thank Tom at Uncivilized for giving me the chance. This is a project I kind of sat on for a while. And threw at him a couple of times as an idea, and finally it was time to pull the trigger on it, so it did. I'm very proud of it, so thanks.
Conan told me not to come up here with these anymore, but you know what? We gotta be. So, okay. This is
I'd just like to point out that I blurbed Tyler's book, and that's the secret. Hiring an American. That's how you get prizes. As I mentioned, the Pigskin Peters was a character in the comic strip Birdseye Center, which Doug Wright drew for 20 years. The song that Mike just played was titled, now did you guys notice that Mike just played this song? It's beautiful. Was titled Take Me Back to Birdseye Center and was written in 1927 by Nelson H. Bell, contributed to the comic strip. It probably has not been played in public for a very, very long time. I love you. Our next award is the Nipper, the Doug Wright Award for Best Emerging Talent, sponsored by crowdfunding. This award, given to an author or team early in their career and deserving of wider recognition, is named in honor of Doug Wright's signature character. The winner of the Nipper receives a trophy, a small cash prize, and a week at the Valley View Artist Retreat in Caledon, Ontario. Here to present the 2024 Nipper Award is Veronica Post, the winner of the 2021 Nipper, for her book, Langosh and Peppy, Fugitive Days.
Hello, everybody. Okay, it's my pleasure to announce the nominees. The nominees for the 2024 Nipper Award are James Collier for The Lonesome Shepherd, published by Big Shot. Vincy Lin for When I Was a Kid, I Was Taught How to Die. Now that I'm an adult, I'm happy to live. I Work You.
and When She Set Fire to My Friends' Houses. Both self-published. Sid Medea for Sid Medea's Dracula, self-published. Christopher Twin for Bad Medicine and Manada Conundrum Press. And Kyle Vidal Graham for Kettle Harper, published by Conundrum Press. All right. And the winner is Vincey Lim. When I was a kid, I was taught how to die. Now I'm an adult. I know how to live. I love you. And When She Set Fire to My Friend's Houses.
Hello, this podium is really tall and I'm a little short, but that's okay. I can hear me. I'm actually really nervous standing up here, so I was preparing a little blurb in my head just in case, and I'm actually really nervous that I have to say the word out loud. Thank you so much to especially all my friends, my family, my friends, it's really special and exciting if I can do a little spiel. These are really personal memoirs. They're really personal. They're really much about abuse and surviving that, and it has been so really sorry. For example, growing up in a very abusive school, as a partner, would get tucked into bed at night by my father, and I would wait half an hour and sneak down to the staircase. I would lie down on the staircase, and it's just a little bit trigger warning, but I would listen to my mom and about how so this is really special in my head that I am still alive today. That is really special to me because when I was 5 years old, I didn't know what I was living for. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to live. And some people said that I wanted to live. I wanted to have that community. I wanted to know what was out there for living. And I guess it is really nothing but having every single individual who has come up to me and saying thank you. I grew up just like you, and I didn't know what to do. I don't know where to go, and I have found myself through the work, through your community, through your workshops, through everything that I do in my art. Yeah, that's my little skill.
This mic is pretty quiet, there's a variance. So if you come up to accept something, especially if you're going to move everyone in the room, pull it down towards your mouth a little bit and be just a little bit louder. Not everyone has this beautiful croon. Last fall, along with the Beguiling Comic Shop, the Doug Wright Awards hosted a memorial for Joe Matt, creator of the comic Peep Show, who died unexpectedly in September at the age of 60. And we wanted to acknowledge his passing tonight as well. Joe wasn't a Canadian, but he spent many years here and produced the majority of his published work while living in the country. He is very much an honorary member of the Canadian comics community. Please welcome Joe's close friend, the cartoonist Chester Brown, and Joe's brother, Peter Matt, who would both like to say a few words.
Yeah, it was a big shock when I heard the news back in the fall about Joe dying. I got a phone call. Was it? Yeah, one night from Joe's good friend Kevin, who I'd met, and so yeah, it was. Well, I knew that Joe was very important, not just to me, but to every the wider comics community in Toronto. His work was so influential, and right from the beginning, the earliest strips by him that I read we were talking about it earlier today in Snarf, a comic book, an anthology series. It was obvious how fresh his take was on autobiographical comics. Autobiographical comics had been done before. Significant work had been done by Robert Crumb and Harvey Pekar and other cartoonists. But I sort of thought of that as, the work that those cartoonists did and, not something I'd be interested in doing. And then when I saw Joe's work, it seemed like such a different take and just a new way of doing work about one's own life, and made immediately when I read Joe's work, I was like, this is what I want to do. And I began to do my own autobiographical comics. So yeah, he had a huge effect on me and a lot of other people. And when that early work in Snarf would have come out in 1989, and maybe a year later he moved to Toronto. He had already been living in Montreal for I think about 2 years at that point. He moved to Montreal in the late 80s to live with his girlfriend then Trish, who lived in Montreal. Joe was born in Philadelphia. Yeah, he moved here. He lived here in Toronto for about 10 years, and made so many friends here. Not just in the comics community, of course. In the comics community, he was famously big friends with me and with Seth, but also many other figures in the arts community, particularly musicians, this was so beloved by so many people here, and I guess the main thing I want to say is it's wonderful that I get the chance to come up here and acknowledge how important Joe was to the Canadian comics scene, even though he was an American. But I also wanted to add that I hope it's not the last time that we talk about Joe at the Doug Wright Awards. Personally, I think his work should be considered Canadian work. He lived here for 10 years. He created most of the body of his work here, certainly the work that he's best known for. The work is set here in Montreal and Toronto, Canada. And I think it's authentically Canadian. Even if he was born in the States and even if he moved back to the US for his later years when he didn't do much work for whatever reason. I'd like to see him nominated, or not nominated, I'd like to see him become part of the Giants of the North because I think he deserves it. Um, but yeah, Joe, we missed you, and that's it for me. Now, Joe's brother Peter is going to get up and say a few words.
Maybe I should go on first. Dustin promised something about crying. Crying. I promise. So yes, hello everyone. My name is Peter Matt. I am the youngest sibling of my brother Joe. I want to first thank Conan, Tobias, and the Doug Wright Awards for reaching out and inviting me. On behalf of the Matt family, and also having never been to Toronto or Canada ever, I am both honored and absolutely delighted to be here. As a kid, all that I knew was that my brother Joe was an amazing artist. Long before his acclaimed work as a colorist or his comic peep show, I would peruse his old notebooks from school. They contained so many amazingly rendered doodles. I would pore over them, scrutinizing the detail and examining the intricate shading, the combined use of ink and pencil. And I was struck by the oddity of their content, the strange creatures and faces. So I have been a fan of his art for, well, probably longer than anyone. However, I'm only a casual fan of comic art and graphic novels, and perhaps the least qualified to discuss Joe Matt, the artist. So instead, I just want to tell you a little bit about Joe Matt, the person. Quick story that I think sums up both Joe's obsession with comics and his personality was that as a very young kid, he would ride his bike all the way from our house to the local news agency, where they sold newspapers, magazines, tobacco products, and most importantly, comic books. This bike ride entailed not only traveling several miles each way, but also crossing numerous major roads and going down Main Street into the center of town. Having grown up in that same house, my self-imposed radius was a few blocks in any direction. I never once thought of biking to town alone. Perhaps, unlike Joe, I didn't want anything bad enough to even consider it. Joe, the artist, paints himself out to be a jerk. But I want you to know that he was incredibly soft-hearted. In stark opposition to the character in his work, he was obsessed with media that was wholesome. Yeah. He loved to consume sappy movies and television. One of his favorites was the TV show Little House on the Prairie, which, if you're not familiar with it, is brimming with old-fashioned family values and sentimentality. He loved the show, and he would watch it repeatedly and cry at every episode. And in perhaps the sweetest example of how soft-hearted he could be, about 6 years ago, Joe and his most recent girlfriend of 8 years, Vicky Krause, ended their relationship. Joe, however, maintained a connection with Vicky's brother that grew into a close friendship. So much so that Joe was there for the births of each of his two daughters. He became uncle. He became Uncle Joe to them, and he remained in their lives until his passing when they were 5 and 6 years old. In rare expressions of financial generosity, he would bring them toys and treats when he visited, claiming that he couldn't help himself. Joe actually loved kids, and he was great with them. So, while I am here to join you in this celebration of this town and work as an artist, I will remember him as a brother. A brother that let me win as a kid when we played video games. A brother that I loved going on hours-long walks with as an adult. A brother that I loved going on hours-long walks with as an adult. A brother that I shared the ups and downs of addiction recovery with. A brother that went out of his way to maintain relationships with the people that he cared about and loved, and who called both of his parents regularly to talk for as long as they wanted. We love and miss you, Joe. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage the co-founders of the Doug Wright Awards, Seth and Brad Mackay.
I hope you like men crying on stage, because there's going to be a lot more of it. Thank you so much, Peter. I was lucky enough to meet and be friends with Joe when he lived here, as my wife did, and I was devastated when I heard that he passed, and it choked me up on a regular basis. And if I would have known he liked Little House on the Prairie, I would have teased him so much. So that's another thing I regret now, is I never teased Joe about Little House on the Prairie. So the other memoriam is I want to talk about Phyllis, or Phil, is South and I often talk about her. I had some stuff prepared, but I don't want to read this. I just want to say that so Phyllis, the past couple of years, wasn't enabled to make it to the awards. People would come to the awards in the past. She would come up with Seth and I and present the awards and say thank you. And but then it was the pandemic, and then a couple of years ago she couldn't make it. She watched on YouTube. Last year she was really hoping to come, I think, but then she had a kind of a series of setbacks and couldn't make it. And so this time last year I was saying, we're missing a key part of our team, Phyllis, or, we go back on. And I was texting with Ken about it, and Ken Wright, and, she was 93, but I still genuinely felt she was tough as nails, and I was really hoping she would pull through. But, I feared the worst, obviously. And then when I found out she passed away, I was devastated. It was only a few months after that I found that Joe had passed. So it was a sad fall. I just want to say that these awards in the book would not exist without Phyllis. When I was writing the biography of the book, rereading the scripts, you're really struck by how, you have the dad, but you're like, that's definitely Phyllis. When you look at it, it's drawn just like her. You see old photos and you see her, and you think about the kids and you think about the dad. And I think about the dad because I'm the dad, but I'm sure there's a lot of mums who read the script and see the mom, stuck with the kids and stuff. Anyway, she was pivotal in the script. It wouldn't have worked without her. She was pivotal in maintaining the legacy of Doug and keeping all of the stuff, and maintaining that. So not only would they not exist because she supported it, but they wouldn't exist because she would have maintained the legacy and kept all that stuff, which is so important, I think, if you're an artist, somebody hangs on to that stuff. Anyways, I miss her so much, and I wish she could be here. So yeah, I just want to say goodbye to Phyllis, I guess, if she's on stage. I'll have stuff.
I will be doing no crying. I am a hard-hearted bastard. So I'm going to just read this from my heart. Phyllis was a strong figure, a person of assurance and graciousness, and in my opinion, a clear, calm sense of her own identity. She had presence. I don't know this for a fact, but I've always assumed that in the Wright household, she was the boss. Just a guess. She was also very easy to get along with. She had an obvious sense of fun, and when I think of her, I see her smiling. She was social and chatty, and not without an opinion. I like these qualities in her. They were good, old-time, stolid Canadian qualities. She died in her 90s, so I don't think it's odd to speak of her as someone from an earlier era. She had that old-time dignity, a fine quality that is somewhat out of style and not so obvious today. Some might have read that dignity as distance, but I read it as prudence, a virtue. She was clearly loved as well. At her funeral, the grief of her granddaughters showed just how much they thought of her. I was envious of that display of emotion. No one will ever cry like that at my funeral. Phyllis was quite the lady, and I highly admired all those qualities of her that I have just listed. She generously extended her trust to Brad and I from the very first day we met her, and she dealt with our missteps and failures with nothing but understanding. In fact, she never mentioned any of them. She wasn't blind to things, merely polite. Though it's not entirely true that she never said anything ever. She did once. When the first volume of our Doug Wright book came out, Phyllis was not exactly quiet on one failure. Mine. Apparently, the photos I'd selected for her wedding to Doug did not exactly please her. In her opinion, I'd failed to pick any of the good ones. I still don't know quite how this happened, but when I looked over all the photos again, it was pretty obvious which one should have been picked. A big, beautiful photo of the two of them getting into a car. A gorgeous and glamorous shot. I'd foolishly overlooked it somehow. I cringed at that conversation between us. It was the first time, really the only time, that she ever expressed any disappointment to me, and I felt terrible about it. I apologized profusely, of course, but I also made secret plans to get that photo in the second volume. And I did. When you open up that book, you see it right there on the dedication page. Dedicated to Phyllis, of course. But also on that page is her death. Sadly, Phyllis died before she saw that photo page. I have many regrets in life. Missing that moment of restitution in a book is one of them. If only that book had come out a year or two earlier, but it didn't. Sorry, Phil. I blew it. None of us ever met Doug Wright. He was long dead before these awards were created. We know him only as an abstraction. Doug's name may be on the masthead, but it was Phyllis who became the heart and soul of the awards. We didn't expect this when we started, but year by year, her presence at the show took on more than just an honorary quality. We got to really like her, care about her, enjoy her company. We even got to love her. We created these awards in part to honor Doug Wright. Back then, we could see that his name was slipping into obscurity. He was in danger of being forgotten. We wanted to keep his memory alive. I'd like to suggest that in the years ahead, we do the same for Phyllis. Let's not forget her. She was important, and we of the Doug Wright Awards will deeply miss her. So while it might be weird to clap at a memorial, let's give Phyllis a big round of applause for all she did for the Doug Wright Awards and for Canadian culture.
And now I'd like to welcome Ken Wright to the stage to say a few words on behalf of Wright Family.
Thank you all very much for including Doug Wright's real family year after year in these awards. I want to thank Brad and Seth for those wonderful tributes to our mom and our grandma. Dustin as well. I didn't realize Dustin had those kind of words in him, but thank you very much for your words as well. I mainly came up here to congratulate the winners of this year's awards, the winners, the nominees of the Doug Wright Awards for the past 20 years, for the next 20 years, and also to express Doug Wright's real family. There's 12 of us here. We're only missing my son, Phyllis and Doug's grandson, Matt, who's out west. To thank Brad, Seth, Conan, those behind the scenes whose names I don't know, for the wonderful book that was produced, the second volume. There's a lot. Jim and I both read it in the last week or so, learned a lot about our dad. We didn't really know that he secretly journaled and kept from us, probably for good reason, other than the fact that some of that stuff showed up in cartoons. But again, on behalf of Doug Wright's real family, my main goal here is to congratulate the winners as well as the nominees of the awards. Thank you.
That was a nice shot, Ken. Each year, the Doug Wright Awards inducts one or two new members into the Giants of the North, which is the Canadian Cartooning Hall of Fame. Often one of them is dead, so we're especially happy that both of this year's inductees are alive and well and with us tonight. This year's first inductee is Denny Lubert, the founder and one-time publisher of Renegade Press, and the co-founder and one-time publisher of Aardvark Vanaheim. Here to induct Denny are the illustrator Michael Cherkas and the writer Larry Hancock, co-creators of the comic The Silent Invasion.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Hello, good evening. We're here to introduce the first of this year's two inductees into the Giants of the North Hall of Fame. This has already been described. And I'm Michael Cherkas, and this is my accountant, Larry Hancock. And that's true. Together, we are the two-headed monster behind the Silent Invasion. We'll get to the Silent Invasion in a minute, but here's what we need to know about Dan, or what we know. Denny first became interested in comics through the then president Dave Sim. Denny admired the work of Canadian artist Wright and wanted to publish a zine very similar to James, and that concept was born Dave's comic service, the Aardvark, which apparently is a spelling mistake. We'll come to that. And anyway, they created the company Aardvark Vanaheim Press, and that was wanting to expand Aardvark Vanaheim, what they did call it from now on. Beyond just service, Dave and Denny would soon also publish a handful of their comics. Journey by William Rhodes, Flaming Ferret comic by Bob Burton, Normal Man by Jimmy Valentino, and History by and Neil the Horse by Catherine Collins herself. Neil the Horse and Normal Man both began their publishing lives as part of unique stories back on Danny and serve to introduce and find new talent, not necessarily. After Dave and Danny split in 1984. She established Renegade Press, taking all of the non-service titles. And then she decided to add some new books. And in January of 1985, before she headed out to Long Beach, Danny approached us about doing a new book for Renegade. We'd done a couple of multi-part stories for unique stories in the previous couple of years. And so we tossed around a few ideas and eventually came up with Silent Invasion. The girl wrote the Kitchener presented the concept. It was like a kind of a vibe. It was like a phone book information video. And that was in January of 85. But the book didn't come out until after we moved to California in 86. Anyway, so Silent Invasion appeared finally in April 86. And I think it was one of the first new books. What was unique about Renegade was the range of titles that she published and the chances she took to create as many of us revealed themselves. And she continued to publish the titles we've already mentioned. Neil the Horse, about a happy singing dancing horse who likes bananas and milkshakes. Muse Tree, a female hard-boiled detective series. And Muse Tree was really hard-boiled. You didn't want to mess with her. And Normal Man, a superhero spoof parody. And Flaming Carrot comics about a brain-addled guy in a carrot suit.
Danny's new books at Renegade included Wordsmith, which was a 12-issue series about the inner life of a pulp magazine writer in the 1930s by Dave Derrigo and Rick Taylor, both Canadians. Kafka by Steve Siegel and Stefano Gaudiano followed the surrealistic persecution of a former CIA agent by an unnamed state apparatus. And French Ice, which featured English translations of the French series Carmen Crew, a cantankerous old lady who abuses everyone with impunity. She published a number of books featuring stories and artwork by Steve Ditko. She also published 3 issues of the anthology Women's Comics and the very odd one-shot Crypto the Acid by Steve Lealoa, Bill Mummy, and Miguel Ferrar. And of course, the Cases of Sherlock Holmes by Dan Day. And of course, The Silent Invasion, a paranoid fantasy set in a nightmarish 1950s, featuring flying saucer sightings, alien abductions, communist spies, McCarthyism, the Red Scare, and rogue FBI agents. This is but a fraction of the titles she published. At times, Renegade felt like a cross between underground and mainstream publishing. Denny gave the Renegade artists and writers freedom to go wherever they felt the story would take them, to explore strange new worlds and go where no creators had gone before. We recall a discussion with Denny where she said, now I'm paraphrasing here from memory, she was working with artists and writers who wanted to make comics, not movies. This is at a time when Hollywood is just starting to rediscover comics. Renegade had a brief but brilliant life from 1984 to 1988. Born just a little too early to benefit hugely from the black and white boom of the early 80s, and then brought down by the black and white bust at the end of it. After Renegade, Denny went to work with Richard and Wendy Penny at Work Graphics for a while. She also moved on to Hollywood, where she worked with various studios to develop comic lines of their own, including at Paramount developing the Bible for Star Trek comics. But being Hollywood, most of these projects never actually reached fruition. For the past 13 years, she's lived in Westminster, BC, and now works as a producer at New Westminster Community Television, making short community-focused documentaries. At Renegade Press, as I said, several of the artists and writers were Canadian. Ourselves, Rick Taylor, Dave Derrigo, Steve LeBlanc, and the Day brothers, Dan and David. She gave us all a chance to fulfill our crazy childhood dreams to write and draw comics. And that, we have to thank her very deeply and very truly. Now, before we bring Danny up on the stage, we did reach out to some of the other writers and artists that she's worked with in the past. We have a few words from
Taylor sent us along. Illness prevents me from seeing Denny, but his love deserves honor. I owe my rather odd career in comics to Denny and the late Dave Derigo. Denny supported Wordsmith 100% every step of the way. Thanks to her, that series opened many interesting and occasionally lucrative doors for me. When I switched to painting for galleries, she was there cheering me on. And if you meet only a handful of people in your life, like Denny, you are a fortunate person. Denny, I applaud you, and I'm still proud to call myself a man. That's my tale.
from Jean-Marc Lufissier, who is now in France. Denny's work with Renegade Press was one of the best things that came out of the 80s, even if it got swamped beneath the merchandising blitz that came out of the first Tim Burton Batman movie. Her taste was impeccable. I still have many of these books, The Silent Invasion, Wordsmith, my favorite, and Kafka, to name but a few. On a more personal note, Randy, his wife, and I still have very fond memories of those evenings where we got together and read the translated scripts of Carmen Cruz, aka French Ice, prior to publication. French Ice still draws praise on the internet today, and Denny was a wonderful publisher. Good times.
From Bob Burden. My congratulations and sincere esteem to Denny, our dear and unstoppable Denny Rivera, who tenaciously and valiantly held together our merry band of renegades back in the day. Back in those golden days of yesteryear when a new wave of comic artists, writers, and publishers rose up to grab the torch and continue and keep alive. This is what I have to paraphrase this, right? To grab the torch and continue to keep alive one of Canada's most cherished and sacred art forms, that of the Canadian flamenco. You actually got the word American. You can't say it's a good radio.
From Terry Beatty. Terry is currently the writer and artist on the Rex Morgan MD comics. That he is. In 1982, my comic book collaborator Max Allen Collins and I created a private eye series called Ms. Tree for Eclipse Comics. The comic was well received, but after one serialized story in Eclipse magazine and a 9-issue run of her own comic book, Eclipse passed on publishing any more adventures of our tassels, nails, and toes. Enter Denny Rivera, who rescued her and us and kept the title afloat in a difficult and uncertain market through issue number 50, going above and beyond to see that last issue was published. Ms. Tree had a lot of great company at Denny's Renegade Press. Journey, Neil the Horse, Silent Invasion, and more. An eclectic group of titles that had one thing in common. They were all great. Looking back, I'm amazed and honored to be part of such a remarkable lineup. Denny's dedication to Renegade Press and our detective comic kept us going long enough to catch the eye of DC Comics, where we did another 10 double-sided issues before moving on to other projects. The door having been opened for me, Terry, to spend a decade as part of DC, as part of the Batman art team, and Max to write Road to Perdition for them. Career highlights for us that very well might not have happened without our time at Renegade Press to keep the spotlight on our work and the lights on it. Today, all of our mystery comics are still in print. As comics historians look back in the 1980s and the black and white explosion, I think you'll see that of all the publishers at the time, Renegade Press light shone the brightest. Congratulations to Denny Rivera on her induction into the Canadian Cartoons Hall of Fame. A very well-deserved honor.
And here's a note from Jim Valentino. Denny and I have been friends for more years than either of us want to admit to. She gave me my first big break in comics, but please don't hold that against her. She was young then and didn't know any better. She was also my inspiration as a publisher, first at Shadowline, then later as the publisher of Image. Denny pioneered a publishing house that eschewed genre in favor of excellence. She championed books and creators that didn't fit into the usual mode, and thus created one of the first truly diversified lines of comics, something for which I don't think she received nearly enough credit. So this induction into the Hall of Fame is, in my opinion, not only well deserved but long overdue. So to my dear friend, I offer my congratulations, and to you folks who had the good taste to honor her this evening, I say bravo.
Hey, you're both not as skinny as we used to. Last but not and longest, from veteran comics editor and former Montrealer, Diana Schultz. A shining inspiration to so many of us, Denny Hulibert has always been a star, despite her spelling. As one of the original 2,000 readers of Service the Aardvark #1, I was introduced on the page to Denny sometime in 1978, when I finally read that first issue, starting with her inside front cover note from the publisher, in which she admitted to everyone that her spelling mistake had resulted in the name of what was to become one of my all-time favorite reads. In 1978, the number of women working in comics publishing was tinier than any of you can imagine, and the number of Canadian women working in comics publishing was one. Yeah. At the time, I was behind the counter at the comic shop in Vancouver, ringing up sales, or more often bagging and tagging, and Denny opened my eyes to the idea that, well, that there could be more. A few years and 38 issues later, Denny's May 1982 note from the publisher complained about the counterfeit Service #1 copies that had surfaced from New York City to San Francisco just a month earlier and had been sold to unsuspecting comic retailers along the way for what she claimed was a ridiculously low price of $25. By then, I was working in the San Francisco Bay Area for the Seven Sword Comics and Comics chain, editing our retail newsletter, The Telegraph Wire. On weekends, I subbed for the resident buyer at the Berkeley store, and you guessed it, though I paid out a bit more than $25 a piece, I bought 3 of those bogus copies for our back issue. So this time, I bristled a little at Denny's words, and I fired off a letter explaining the basic economies of buying and selling collectible comics for a 7-store chain. This is long before email, and weeks would pass before Denny received my letter. When she did, she hired me. If I remember correctly, I was tapped to write a handful of press releases for Aardvark Anaheim. It would not be the only time in my subsequent editorial career that I worked for AV, but it was the only time I worked for Denny before she moved on to Renegade Press and her new life. But in October of that year, as part of their first 1982 First American tour, Denny and Dave landed at the flagship Berkeley Comics and Comics store. Before that signing that evening, it was Denny who graciously made time for the 3 of us to meet in person, and I was unashamedly stoked. For her immense generosity to a young Canadian girl, and for every shining thing that she brought to comics, including that fortuitous spelling mistake, I'd like to add my voice to many who are here tonight to congratulate Giant of the North, Denny Hulibert, on her induction to the Canadian Cartoon Hall of Fame. Blah, blah, my friend. Denny, would you like to take the stage?
Okay, so you made me cry. So Michael and Larry and I were talking the other day. They did not warn me about all these people they talked to first. And they're saying, like, you do realize, like, this award, they always have, like, one for a dead person. And then, so I just kind of wanted to start by saying I am not dead. Getting older, but I'm still here. And
And I wanted to thank Conan for being so persistent. Conan first invited me over here to get this award several years ago, and then that stupid pandemic came in the middle and kind of threw all our plans away. But I am really happy. I'm really happy I made it here. And you know, the big thing that this show and this award has reminded me of is what I always loved about comics, and it's you guys. It's your love of comics, it's the community, it's the generosity, it's the way we're there for each other. It's a community like very few others. I went and worked in Hollywood for a little while. Let me tell you, they don't have this kind of love. They don't have this kind of support, despite, you know, those big fancy award shows. This is the heart and soul of comics, and it's why I thank you.
If you'd like to hear more from Denny, she'll be in conversation with Rebecca Sullivan at TCAP tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. in the Hinton Room on the third floor of the Toronto Reference Library. This year's second inductee is the cartoonist and illustrator Maurice Bellecourt. Here to induct Maurice is Fiona Smith, author of the Doug Wright Award-winning You Know, Sex, and a 2019 Giants of the North inductee.
Ran to the washroom. My name is Fiona Smith, and I'm an artist, illustrator, cartoonist, and educator working as TCAP's 2024 general program. I'm honored to be here to introduce the Giants of the North Canadian Cartoonist Hall of Fame 2024 inductee, the illustrious Maurice Bellecourt. And what is there left to share about Maurice after reading his brilliant and very honest graphic memoir? And I'm so glad we have this time together. I can tell you, I met Maurice back in the fall of 1982, within the first week of attending the previously named Ontario College of Art, before it was renamed OCAD. I believe he remembers most everything better than I can, but in that initial meeting, during the long lineup to enroll in classes, I recall a flushed-faced boy appearing too young to be attending college, but warm and engaging to my flushed-faced shy self. As I got to know Maurice and his friend Pete, and other young people within our OCA foundation year, I learned Maurice was the natural leader, visionary, critic, and tastemaker of art form. Design, originality, and beauty reigned supreme. And humor. He was so funny. There were so many laughs, as evidenced by his book and his love for Carol Burnett. He could transform from sophisticate to goofball in a split second. I always figured Maurice would be an actor alongside his visual art pursuits. And if you've heard him read his book, during your book launches, yeah, it's very evident. In those heady days, young Maurice was a cultural connoisseur, sharing with his peers the musical delights of Ima Sumac and Arthur Lyman, and I recall listening to Zig Sputnik in his family's living room. I got to see his mom's home hair salon, and I've met his family, and over the years, mostly running into his sister in River in Toronto. On the comics tip, he was on top of what was happening in the avant-garde cartooning world, educating me about Raw magazine and delving into funky cinema tastes through the transgressive films of Kenneth Anger. Okay, maybe that was his mentor and our OCA teacher, Paul Peters. And Maurice shared his adoration for the dreamy illustrations of Kane Nielsen, an artist who created concept art for his beloved Fantasia. Maurice was the barometer of hip and continues to be. I could always count on and continue to count on his thoughtful critiques of my artwork. Good or bad, he can't hide his pleasure or disdain. His expressive face cannot lie. That said, he is a great cheerleader and over the years has been a caring mentor to some very lucky emerging illustrators and critiques. Maurice's art during our OCA days was resplendent, mixing cartoonists, illustrators, artists, and filmmakers' influences and creating his own singular voice, but always topmost, he was an excellent storyteller. This skill fueled his work and his meteoric rise as an internationally celebrated illustrator. His comics and illustrations shared stories of everyday life, workers' lives, fantastical sexual fantasies, tender moments, and visualizing music. And later in his cartooning career, he drew narratives on a heavier note about the more negative human experiences of loneliness, unrequited love, and the violence of being assaulted. And those Maurice colors were unmatched, lush and juicy. He has only gotten better over time. Not all cartoonists are good painters. Most of us stay in the lane of the purity of black and white comics, whereas Maurice is a master of black and white, but transports us through his incredibly skillful use of color. Soon after graduating from OCA, Maurice had an interview at Reactor Art and Design with co-founder and artist rep Bill Grigsby, who's in the room tonight, a big influence and champion for both of us over the years. Bill took Maurice on immediately to join Reactor's stable of illustrators, and so began Maurice's stellar career in illustration. Pretty much any magazine or newspaper you could name, he was published in. Maurice's signature style, a mix of nostalgia with a decidedly contemporary feel, was often sought after. His excellent storytelling skills, perfect line work, and gorgeous palettes led to thousands of assignments. Maurice has also ventured into drawing for animations in more recent years. For example, for StoryCorps Out Loud, the title piece, My Aunties, the story of Toronto's Stephen Lynch's account of growing up with gay parents during the 1980s AIDS crisis, and Love Lost and Found about transgender veteran Sue McConnell and Kristen Reed's sisterhood. And more recently, Maurice drew animated scenes for the film Boulevard, a Hollywood story about Gloria Swanson's hiring of Dixon Hughes and Richard Staveley, two young songwriters and romantic partners, to turn Sunset Boulevard into a musical. What could go wrong? Maurice's penultimate assignment was for Vogue, being commissioned to go to Couture Week in Paris and document the fashion show's reportage style in comic form. As Maurice has recounted, Anna Wintour infamously referred to illustrators being those people. But surprisingly, there were no edit notes from the ice cream once he handed his assignment in. Maurice is a generous friend, including helping me out financially in those early days more than once. Many a time he would foot the bill for the lunches or dinners we'd have at finer TO restaurants he could begin to afford as a successful illustrator. And he covered everything on a trip we took to Los Angeles to participate in Spewzine, the Queer Zine Fest in 1991, for our zine published by Reactor with fellow illustrator Roxana Bickerdorf, titled Fabulous Face, which went on to be published by Toronto. Naturally, as most Canadian artists contemplate a move south to better their careers, Maurice left Toronto for Manhattan. It was a fraught time with more downs than ups, and luckily for us, he returned home to the Toronto Islands. I have to mention a detail of Maurice's days in NYC, where a particular haircut unintentionally fashioned him to look like Beck at the height of Beck's fame. Many times, Maurice was mistaken as the Californian musician in his daily travels around Manhattan. As Maurice's illustration career grew, so did his rise as a gay icon. The sexy drawings that began in art school proliferated in art shows, comics, and books in the following decades. His reputation grew for drawing the male form through his ABC book, a homoerotic primer, and his pinups book. And the full Maurice bibliography, of course, includes Television, a collection of comics and pictures which showcases some of his early days large-scale comics, and the book A Nut at the Opera, a glorious tribute to his friend and mentor, Coffee. Some have considered his predecessor as Tom of Finland, but Tom's monoculture gods cannot compare to the world Maurice, full of color and differently shaped bodies. Unrequited love fueled much of his lustful images of all sorts of peni. In pin-ups, a depiction of Leonard Nimoy as an erect spotted slave. Maurice's comic offerings were sparse for a little bit, but he made a sexy return through Poema Press with the further sexploits of Gloria Badcock. And then he committed to a graphic novel that grew and grew and grew. This is a weird thing to say. The cartoonist in the room, everybody in the room, understands the laboriousness of cartooning. It's hard for the layperson to understand the effort that goes into a comic that appears in print. As Chris Ware has said, you work on a book for 20 years and suddenly look up and wonder where your life went. Maurice's memoir hints at the incredible labor that went into its creation. Nothing is left to chance with him. Every detail is carefully considered, every mark, every dab of color. And if he isn't satisfied in the result, he will re-render again and again. I've seen the voluminous piles of Joseph. His perfection is hard won. The reader's benefits from the torturous way these comics make it to the page. And what a triumph the battle was for his graphic memoir, I'm So Glad We Have This Time Together. Referencing Sleeping Beauty as a metaphor for Maurice's life, the story gains closure with the meeting of his Prince Charming, the gorgeous and talented writer, playwright, producer, and editor, Gordon Bonus, co-creator of the brilliant and hilarious musical, The Ding Dong Girls. They have forged a beautiful life together, and we can see it celebrated through their collaborations and dressing up for Pride Day. For 20 years or more, they bring more inventive themes that get funnier and audacious. In 2020, they celebrated Toronto Island activism during the depths of the pandemic lockdown, decked in Age of Aquarius summer mini dresses, carrying placards that read, "Save Island Homos, and Old Gay and Pissed." What more can I say? This incredible artist is so deserving of this honor, and every honor that will indeed follow with the release of his graphic memoir. Please welcome my dear friend, Maurice Delacour.
Bear with me for a moment. Thank you, Fiona, my dear friend. I want to take this time to talk about a very serious issue for cartoonists. Tchotchkes. Vintage Japanese wind-up robots, Star Wars action figures, 1950s ceramic lady head vases. I just know your studio bookshelves are sagging under the weight of them. Whatever it is, we cartoonists love to collect. We can't help it. We need these objects.
My own tchotchke-filled workspace is a sealed-in former front porch. It measures exactly 7 by 12 feet, and I work large. Much of the studio is dominated by 2 enormous flat files. Stacks of dusty CDs tower precariously over the work table, and there's paper everywhere. When a recent psychological study showed that clutter actually helps creativity, I felt so vindicated. Get thee behind me, Marie Kondo. On my windowsill, a small row of tiki mugs sits next to a Class Oldenburg cardboard pretzel. These are my own particular household gods. They silently observe and inspire. So what is it about these cheap toys, vintage whatnots that attracts us? It's simple. They give pleasure. Pleasure. Such a fraught word, and hardly ever simple. Perhaps, like me, you were raised by strict Calvinist Christian Dutch parents. In this severe world, all pleasure was suspicious. If something was fun, how could it be good for you? So it's ironic. When I think back about my career, the work I've done over the past 40 years, the one through line that I see through all of it is to give pleasure. It's a reaction to my upbringing, certainly. It's also a personality trait. I want people to like my work, and by extension, me. Most important, though, it brings me pleasure to offer my vision of pleasure to the world. To charm, to delight, to make an audience laugh. The most I ever had was a talent to amuse, as Noel Coward said of himself. But pleasing art can also accommodate pain. When I work, I can't listen to podcasts or people talking. I have to have music, mostly classical music and opera. I've spent a lot of time listening to and thinking about Mozart. Mozart believed that music should always be aesthetic, a thing of beauty, pleasurable, even or especially when it deals with angst and pain. This is true for me too. In my recent memoir, I had to visualize a lot of difficult material. I tried to paint the dark stuff with some degree of beauty as well, to help the audience, to point to the dark humor that sits alongside it as well, a spoonful of sugar. For Mozart, creation came effortlessly, straight from his mind through the pen onto the paper. It doesn't work that way for me. A lot of effort goes into making it look effortless. A typical workday for me is a roller coaster of changing opinion and judgment. By the end of the morning, I'm ecstatic. I'm the new Mozart. By mid-afternoon, I'm despondent. It's all terrible. By evening, it will do just fine, and I will have to be satisfied with my limitations. I did my best. It's all part of the daily struggle of creating. This has been quite a year for me. My memoir came out in February, and I've been busy promoting. I did interviews for CBC Radio and NPR. I wrote articles for Maclean's in the Globe and Mail. I went on a short trip to the States, and more travels coming up. It's all very distracting and exciting. But once in a while, I hear an odd, low murmur. It's very faint, but familiar. It's the household gods. The tiki mugs and the Oldenburg pretzel are silently calling. They miss me. They want me back. And I want to go to that place where I'm truly the happiest and the most me, in the studio, luxuriously dreaming of new ways to please. Got a few people to thank. Fiona, first of all, thank you for that lovely speech and for many, many years of friendship. There it is, sorry. Bill Grigsby, my rep of 38 years, my biggest cheerleader. Steve Dunk at Reactor, who put so much time and work into making my work look as good as it possibly can. Chris Oliveros at John and Quarterly, my old friend. Chip Kidd for seizing on what was a very slender proposal for Pantheon in 2012. L.T. Carper and Andy Hughes at Pantheon Books, New York, who serenely watched the 2015 deadline for delivery pass without comment. Cameron Waller and Sarah Jackson at Random House Canada. Thanks, Cameron, for all your amazing work promoting me in the book. And of course, my family, my lovely family. It's okay that none of you are here tonight, really. I know I am supposed to thank the Canada Council and Ontario Arts Council at every opportunity, but I truly am grateful for all the support I have received from them over the years of creating my book. I feel so lucky to live in a country that, at least for now, truly supports artists. And finally, my partner, Gordon Bonas. What can I say? You are such a great support, wonderful editor, best friend. As we enter our 60s, let's keep the love and laughter going. Thank you all for being here tonight.
We're nearly there. There being the bar. I have one more award to announce, but before I introduce the introducer of that award, I thought I'd just mention, it occurred to me while I was sitting there listening to Maurice and Community Charming, that on SNL, when someone hosts for 5 times, they receive a cool jacket. And a lot of famous people come and fet them, and it's really pleasant. Now, I don't know what you guys do in Canada, but I just thought, since everyone seems to have such cool jackets in here, that this is food for thought. And 7, metric system. Damn it. And now, the evening's final award, the Doug Wright Award for Best Book, sponsored by The Beguiling. This award is given to the best book of any kind published by a Canadian creator or team during the 2023 calendar year. The best book winner receives a trophy and a small cash prize. Here to present the 2024 Best Book Award is Christian Giroux, a professor, cartoonist, and artist, and one of this year's Best Book judges.
Good evening. I'd just like to quickly say, on behalf of Chris Houston and Elaine Will, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, the other judges, just what an incredible honor it has been to help with the adjudication of this award. We all got very invested in this process and became very passionate about this short list. These are all amazing books. They're beautiful works of art, and they are all deserving of a place on your personal bookshelf. So if you haven't done so already, please make room on your shelf for this year's 2024 Best Book nominees, which include Val d'Or Neon by Olivier Ballou, A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll, for a second. Harvey Knight's Odyssey by Nick Mandag, drawn accordingly. Naked, The Confessions of a Normal Woman by Eloise Marseille. Pow Pow Press. Roaming by Gillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki, drawn accordingly. And Jaj by Michael Nicol Yagulanas, Douglas Tamaki. And before I read the award, I wanted to present this jacket. And the winner for the 2024 Best Book Award goes to A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll. I forgot my phone where I had written stuff, but yeah, I'll just be brief. I just wanted to say thank you. It's wild to think of myself when I first exhibited at TCAP. The idea of one day being here accepting this award it's completely surreal. So thank you very much to Doug Wrights. Thank you for beguiling, as always, beguiling. Thank you to my publisher for a second. Thank you to my agent, Ann. Thank you to my wife, Kate, who is here tonight. And yeah, it's here for Kate. She's also like my editor for all my comics, and she also deals with me being Brad about getting editing notes on all of them too. And the other reason why this is so meaningful to me is that I usually do short comics, and this is my first full-length book that I've both written and illustrated myself. And I learned a ton about making comics from it and about myself. Like all my comics, it's embarrassing in hindsight because it's all therapy that you just have to excise. So yeah, thank you very much. And since I have a microphone in front of my face, which does not happen often, I said whenever it would, I would like to just express my solidarity with the UFC encampment that's happening right now. I didn't go to UFC. I went there for 2 months. And then I worked at Blockbuster. But it is so meaningful to me seeing what they're doing. And more than that, though, I just want to express my solidarity and support with the people of Palestine and the movement for Palestine. Thank you.
Beautiful. It says here closing comments, but I have none. I'm sure that Conan is going to come up here, or Brad, or some other busybody, and say something. But I would exhort you to join us at the bar in the back. And don't you dare let any of the people that were nominated or won buy their own beer or wine or non-alcoholic drink. I think that would be an excellent way for, and I mean me as well. The winner of the Five-Timer Club should never pay for his own beer. At any rate, thank you so much for being such an attentive audience and for enduring some clumsy tears and also some very graceful, elegant tears that we had tonight. It was a really nice night, very moving. So, thank you very much from me.
That actually is the end of the show. We're not going back on stage, but we do have a raffle tonight in celebration of the collected Doug Wright Volume 2. We're going to give away a 2-book set. They've now rumored to be out of print, Volume 1, and the new Volume 2. We've only got one set. We'll do it quick. I'm going to ask Denny to pick because, as Denny mentioned, we were supposed to induct Denny back in 2010. Back in 2020, and the pandemic hit, and I appreciate her being so patient and wanting to be here in person to this. So, this one.
Okay. See if I can read the number. 0, 0, 0, 1, You can see I've done bingo, right? 1, 4. 1, 1, 4.
There's no more. Thank you for coming. And the bar is staying open until 1 o'clock tonight, so feel free to stay as late as you like.